Yeah, I just wanted to include real quick that about the ablation and oblation. I just made a video a little bit earlier talking about some Samsung refrigerator with 28.5 cubic feet. You had a French door and talking about the Abraham Lincoln thing about the night vision and the hoodlum and the Lincoln Continental, the vertical rectangle, and you know what it is to a 90-degree and the wide area and the wide world of sports, being like a high rises, identifying, they're huge high rises with rectangle, there seem to be an intellectual duration of like what lifespan means, uh, even of like, the easement, even third person or, easement in the way of whether a degree level of opportunity only represents maybe non-negotiable, non-transferable itemization, in third person in the way of an easement of what having fair use as international law only sees. And my thought about how the equator and the operator and Chevrolet and all the stuff I've been really referring to, and Zion and separation between church and state and all that about the operator and zero, and Alphameric's 108 and 64 that way. But anyway, yeah, I was like wanting to mention, because it's kind of like, I don't know why I kind of like it just kind of like escaped my memory real quick, but I had to refresh my memory about the oblation and ablation thing, referring to it because of it's kind of like I referred to, hey, I've been to a summit meet, I've been to AA, American Amplified, and the deal about the word transfiguration in the Book of Thessalonians and re-entering heaven from Mount Olives, and the thing about the American Amplified on the home theater that way of 192, and I've mentioned it before, I've seen it both MKZ and MKHZ on Lincoln Continental and Cadillac, yeah, the MKZ thing. But yeah, about the vertical hoodlum or the pi r squared deal about the formula itself, and that rectangle being like a square of like a globalization of latitude and longitude, and what a 90-degree like equator is to that fact. So it's amazingly seemingly to be the pi r squared of like a impedance and ambience of like night vision being the pastel green and pastel red of the 13 band. Those are all the two colors being used, and distinguish the difference between resistance and or what rectification is in alternating current as compared to direct circuit, and alternating, presenting what might have the similarities of even in a direct circuit as resistance, showing a principle of rectification of electrical to electronic, presenting the peaks and crests that represent some thought of like controlling what might be considered an overabundant amount, what even represents distortion of signal processing, that require, like a limiter, expander, and compressor of like a performance of, magnitude in large arenas and indoor, like concerts, and even outdoor, but predominantly, like arenas that are normally indoor. Yeah, something about the summit, but yeah. In any case, yeah, so like I wanted to mention the deal about the AOL again real quick, because I was referring to, the Samsung, the Aarons, the AARONS, the Aarons, okay, and it's kind of like it's nonstop. It's like everything is so ridiculously not funny about, what the experience is, and even the forbearance of like a installment associated with student loans. A principle, truthfully, what gives the appearance of what might be only a percentage as not penalty. I mean, it's defined not as a penalty, yet avoiding what would be maybe the thought of a default of a student loan that actually normally, the word grant goes far beyond, even having a need for the loan, but the integration of like a grant being annuity is like almost like the same principle of an earned fact elsewhere, getting it in a different way, and a combination of like their practical daily standard, and what international financial management means to corporate level as compared to business level, or what structure is the infrastructure, or the contra, or if it's going to be the contra deal, or the current event or current affair, or the infrastructure in the way of what maybe the thought of what ergonomics would only suggest as an easement, or even thought of even a screensaver, even television, in a way, the history, or Technicolor in a way, of like the third and fourth generation. In my mind, the third and fourth generation of like the history of the television screen, and Wyatt Earp and John Wayne seemed to be the big deal, and my thought of like Hopsing that way, and what it is on the color code, I mean, the Halo venue of the Rising Canyon, yeah, and all that great stuff about, the color white and the toilet, and the Hio silver, like the venue. I don't know if I'd call it a venue. Not really sure if that's considered that, considering, like sometimes like a nudity involving corporate law. How true it is about the oldest governmental computer mainframe, or where that's at with the silver stainless thing about the stainless steel toilet and the Hio silver deal. And like the little bit of the humor there about the onion rings, because of the, like I said, real quick before I get back on the ablation and oblation and the Heartbeat of America thing and AOL.com thing. But yeah, so anyway, seemed to be the deal about the um oh yeah. In any case, yeah. So I was getting on that because of other factors that would suggest that anyway, I want to get right back to it because I'll have to come back if I'm going to at all. But anyway, I was thinking about that because of the Samsung. Um, I hadn't even really looked other than knowing it's a Samsung. It's like a brand new one, 28.5 cubic feet. But I was thinking about that because of the 56 is 10 and the 28.5 is like the 56 is 10. And getting to the alphanumerics, it seems to be the big deal significantly of 94. And how 56 is 10 originated really was studying two numbers of like alphanumerics, linguistics, and practical application of integration and compatibility and analytical, with just, the forward and reverse, intelligent opposite. The thing about the alphabet, M is in that way. Yeah, in any case, so like I was thinking about that because of the M is in and like more from Mork and all that stuff. Well, anyway, it's kind of like as far as the refrigerator period, okay, the Chicago Bears number 72, and all the 72 stuff about, even the word first, and what First City National Bank is. And the only thing I really know is what I don't say, and seemingly it seemed to be like First City National Bank in my mind was like the first national bank that actually left the categorization of money itself. And, getting to my thought of maybe, truthfully even beyond the thought of what database administration is or is not, or maybe even, thought of even comptrolling, or what might even be regulatory commission that might be, something involved with like the international banking systems in that way. My thought of the euro dollar and the seven nations, a lot of talk about the seven layers of the atmosphere, or what people's perception of a country is, normally perceived as a country, somehow, like in the immediate era, when the R is there, it's like country, and when it's not, it's like county, or, my thought is truthfully about the seven layers of the atmosphere, and the deal about the seven nations of Europe, and the euro dollar in a way, and, what the World Bank is to, that, and the Statue of Liberty, excuse me, the euro dollar and the Statue of Liberty, and the nativity point of origin, the American Indian thing, and the telepathic TP, ultimately getting the, chase and oil in 36 about the TP, and the telepathic thing about 99. And, all of a sudden, like the forbearance is automatically a Department of Education thing, that way. And Chevy Chase, being like a name on the street and boulevard out in on the map in Washington, D.C., it's almost like an automatic deal, like the United States Department of Education, and his name like there in Washington, D.C. that way. But anyway, the thing with this is like that, I was thinking about it because of the refrigerator period, and I'm going to mention it real quick again, because I'm going to really keep this one like a little bit minimized just for now. But anyway, I thought this because like almost heaven's like considered Manville, yet how true it is based upon the 100 club. It's like right into the County Road 100, okay. And the thing with this is like an alignment that's actually like a division of from a certain point. It's that like County Road like 89. It's like almost like Virginia. I mean, for real, okay. And then like 1128, it seems to be the connectivity of the blue and purple bird of Israel being the alphanumerics of like 198. And hey, what's really in between, like FM 1128 and like County Road 99? And it seems to be like something of an alignment that really reflects something about. Maybe I might ought to think about it a little bit. But anyway, yeah. So anyway, all the stuff about County Road 101 and like almost heaven is like a campground that the Houston Oilers used to go to quite a bit. And I'm trying to really place my memory during the William Perry, the Refrigerator Perry deal. I'm not sure what football team he was on before, but and I'm not really sure everything that's involved with it, but I'm pretty sure it's William Perry, Refrigerator Perry, was like put on the Houston Oilers football team. And if my memory serves me correctly, I think Bum Phillips was. I'm going to have to actually think about it really. In any case, I think in any case, I think so. Anyway, the deal about the trade was like I think it was like a 6 week period, and all that stuff about the Roosevelt New Deal Act, and the 6 presidential terms between Theodore and Franklin, and the Six Flags, amusement park deal, and seemingly the 5-star general, or what would be considered left and right side a Big Ten winner if that's really the deal about the HCTP colon. How true it is really, I'm not real sure, or what it really means. Thinking about other than maybe an equator being the only latitude that equates to some thought of equivalence based upon a 9-degree right angle of longitude. But anyway, yeah, so like I'm kind of like thinking about that. But anyway, back to the William Perry. I wanted to include the oblation and oblation, a heart procedure based upon the thought of what was really my thought of amyloidosis. Actually, the bone marrow actually being triggered as part of the immune system, causing an overabundant amount of like white blood cells being produced. I mean, something very much a restriction in blood flow. I mean, it's like automatically. I mean, that was my perception because of manufacturing was going on, even conditions of the air being a factor of like whether or not if a normally standard transaction of lightning, or the thought of like proton, neutrons, and protons, neutrons, and got electrons, and the atmosphere is charging what it means to be inside sometimes, or what consumer electronics means in Reader's Digest in the way of consumption, and like all these things were happening, getting the deal like really not funny or cool at all, yet immediately something degreed in my mind that way, not that necessarily anything other than my thought of like a restriction in blood flow that had resulted in like 16 months of calling 911, like it's like almost looking like the schedule, almost like a participating factor of like willingly and knowingly. But anyway, it's kind of like not the idiot's fee, but it seemed to be the issue ultimately getting to a procedure that was like an admitting diagnosis. But firstly, I mean every single time, of like congestive heart failure. After the third or fourth time going through ER with the same admitting diagnosis, I started, thinking that if this is going to happen, continue. Anyway, it was like treated. I requested, because that was my first thought. Likewise, in addition, some other factors that might have been, something completely different involving what would be normally the thought of muscular cramps. Yet a neural like nerve deal that would be more concentrated along the nerve side of like what cramping would mean, not necessarily in a muscular way, but I mean almost like a tendon and ligament neural nerve way. I mean, it's like really not cool at all, but yeah. And so like something like that was like going on, and likewise in addition a restriction of blood flow. And I really knew that because of the way it was affecting me breathing. And I knew that just from being in baseball and football like my freshman year and all that stuff about normally there's something like that is kind of mentioned, and as far as like a blood flow and restriction, or exercising, sweating a lot, and what circulation means, and all that, with losing a lot of salt, or the exact opposite, or too much salt, or not enough, and normally resulting in respiratory and like blood flow is like normally the conversation in athletics and baseball and football anyway. Anyway, yeah, so like immediately that's like one of my first thoughts is, it's kind of like I felt like I was having a difficulty breathing because of certain factors of combination of the thing resulting in 911 calls. Ultimately, it seemed to be that, through the entire thing, through an experience going through the circuit, okay, and something like, like, you got to be kidding me. Does history repeat itself? Kind of like that. It's kind of like, you got to be kidding me. But anyway, so it ultimately got to some information that was obviously made available. That obviously electrophysiology seemed to be like something that was kind of like just like presented in a way that was just like there, and just be like being there would be, the oh yeah thing about it. In any case, so like amyloidosis seemed to be, the deal about the restriction of blood flow that actually was causing, not allowing the bloodstream to absorb or like dissipate, a normal deal, and actually causing a buildup of fluid, a congestive thing, in combination with other factors. And, after the third or fourth month, normally it was like an automatic 5-day stay. And my first thing was my thought and perception the first time it happened, that it was like exactly what I'm talking about, like right now. I mean, I'd never heard of that like really happening, but, I mean, I'm pretty sure almost virtually anyone that's at least made it, through a junior year and their senior year, even, like a GED grad, and still continue with like further education and whatever academic level, presenting, would possibly know all that, or at least be able to figure that much out about it. But anyway, now the thing with this is like really, in a sense, amyloidosis is normally associated with like oncology, or treatment, involving, cancer. But, really, amyloidosis, how true it is, I mean, my thought, both my mother and father passed away with cancer, okay? And the thing with this is that I was with like my mother like through the entire thing, here at home anyway. When my mother passed away, like 5 or 6 years later, I'll have to actually think about it. My father had cancer as well and passed away in like May 2018. Well, I mean, I was with my father, I mean, like day and night, I mean, for like 5 years straight. And, I mean, all day, all night, I mean, for 5 years straight. So, like, I grasped quite a bit about, like, when he's going to chemotherapy and certain factors of treatment that actually normal people would normally associate maybe amyloidosis as a result of cancer, but truthfully, it's because of the treatment for cancer, not necessarily cancer itself. And how true it is, if that's the only factor or truth about it, but really that is the deal about, treatment for cancer, is that sometimes the radiation, the treatment, and the chemo and other factors other than cancer itself is, not the guaranteed only reason for amyloidosis, or the bone marrow, or, the immune system to cause the bone marrow. And how true it is about the bone marrow and the immune system coordinating, producing the white blood cells to combat, what would be considered maybe, if the immunoglobulin is the only issue, identified within as an internal factor of the body, as compared to what might be an external factor that only seemed to be an issue of terminology involving the antigen. I've seen it both ways, and it's kind of getting frustrating about information that way of what antigen is to immunoglobulin is, the thought of that it would be considered a foreign issue that would be affecting the immunoglobulin itself, as compared to maybe what might be considered, let me say, an internal factor. And it might be a result of a cause and effect. What might be an internal as a cause and effect that would affect the immunoglobulin itself, identified maybe more so as an antigen, as compared to maybe an external factor that might be some other thought of why the bone marrow and the immune system would produce an overabundant amount of blood cells, called amyloidosis. Okay, and it's like it congests the bloodstream, and actually does not allow the bloodstream to absorb oxygen through, the lungs normally, and actually causes a problem of actual congestion of an overabundant amount of blood cells. Likewise, in addition, other factors that might even be including what sodium is, to like high cholesterol, and what cholesterol is, or plaque. Likewise, in addition, as a factor, potentially. I mean, a combination of like many things that like really been going on. It's my thought that even like the thought of plaque that's normally identified inside the bloodstream. I'm to the point now, based upon, whether knowing or not knowing, it's just, I'm in a degree level. And, my thought is almost that like plaque would even possibly line the lining of the intestines as well, and create blockage that might not really ever be discussed, or really truthfully even talked about, really. and what the whole idea and point of like world like class means, right? So in any case, yeah. So that's the way I think and feel about it right now about it. Anyway, so anyway, like the AOL is kind of like I wanted to mention that because it seemed like the oblation being a heart procedure is about the fibrillation and atrial fibrillation, um, atrial fibrillation, AFib, and oh god, I'm gonna have to think about it. Atrial AFib and it might be fibrillation. I'll have to think about that again. I might have to come back again. Anyway, I got a lot on my mind right now. But anyway, yeah. So like in any case, so it's like the word ablation and ablation. I have to actually think about the pronunciation. It almost sounds the same. Okay, like my thing about what AOL is to an equator. All of a sudden, or the oblation and ablation. One is like an act of God, and like 71 in parallel. Can you believe it? A procedure of the heart. Deal ultimately getting to a pericardium, and the oblation being a procedure talking about if it gets to progressive, like aligning a bag around the heart. And the way it's all defined, like a bag, a retaining fluid around the heart having 3 layers. Um, I mean, the way I was seeing it, how true it is anywhere else. I mean, I know what I'm looking at and reading and who I'm talking to, like when I was in the hospital, okay? The thing with this is that it's defining like a pericardium with like 3 layers. And really only 2 layers are only needed for a bag. And how true that is about a bag retaining fluid for the mere sake of protecting the heart from any adverse effect of like impact or anything like that. What that is in anatomy of like alive, being alive. But anyway, so like the oblation and ablation came a factor of like pronunciation, and all of a sudden it's like the AO deal of even deal about the history of the U.S. dollar below the equator. Of the book Secrets of the Temple, How the Federal Reserve Runs the Country. I mean, for real. And Alpha America 69, and yeah, not funny crap, right? So like the thing with this is that ultimately, it's kind of like the oblation and ablation seem to be automatically something in my mind of amyloidosis, and the procedure that seemed to be ultimately getting to the pericardium, and the similarities of what was discussed as congestive heart failure. I was not really agreeing with it. I mean, really at all, because I knew really because of my breathing, I was having an issue with circulation in my bloodstream. I mean, I knew it. I mean, really, I mean, I knew that much about it. Really, truthfully, just because of athletics, in like high school. And football and baseball, it's like, and even in track, I mean, even more so in track based upon the sweating, like cross country and, 220 and 440 and 880 and a mile and all that sprints and all that stuff about, nonstop sweat, right? So, I mean, that's like one of the things I remember some of the coaches talking about. Not necessarily amyloidosis, but, the deal about salt and sodium and too much or too little and circulation in the bloodstream seemed to be like really a factor of like thoroughly convincing myself that I already knew what the deal was in combination with other factors. The cause actually creating what would be, the thought of a symptom of like, congestion, not allowing the bloodstream to absorb oxygen or dissipate, any factor of like transfer, like normally the tissue involves. Yet the definition of like the ablation ultimately got to the issue of like 3 layers in the pericardium, the tissue being the deal, and it seemed to be ultimately getting to the similarities that went out beyond, the thought of like a amyloidosis in the bloodstream representing a tube as compared to the similarities of congestive, ultimately getting to even mesothelioma and the tubes in the bronchi and all the main arteries and everything involved. I mean, with 3 different procedures, I mean, all combined at once, it's like really looking like a heart transplant. And I was kind of like, I was like really not really liking quite a bit about what I was hearing anyway. And then like when I was like thinking about all that, I was like really not cool at all. So anyway, so like so it's kind of like yeah, all right. Well, anyway, it's kind of been quite some time. Maybe I'm not how sure. I hadn't been counting, but maybe it's been a year since all that. Maybe already, but I'll have to think about it. But anyway, it's like went on for like 16 months, and the 15th month was the only month that I didn't have to call. But anyway, so it seemed to be the deal about the, all that white stuff, and something about the blood flow and circulation and the ablation and ablation. Ultimately, it was getting to something in my mind of like COVID-19 was really the thing about the alphanumeric 72 and my thought of like the number. Why I was thinking about it is because I was like looking at the time zone, the central time zone, and like even the Casio watch identifying like like Chicago is like the central time zone, and normally, and even in movies and news, presents like, the atomic energy that actually powers, the laser. As far as I'm with the impression that a nuclear powered, like a atomic energy powering a laser is the actual calibrating factor of like time zones. That way. Well, anyway, that's why I was looking at Chicago, and obviously I knew something about Boeing anyway, because it's like in Clear Lake, and it was previously IBM. And my thought about IBM being automatically like well, since I'm focusing like on exponential quotients in the way of like, variables in the way of like powers of multiplication as compared to pi r squared, and all that placement, even the Richard Nixon deal about the quotation, and even the V twin figure eight drummer deal, about, conductors and semiconductors and orchestrated, deal of magistration, and, what it is and is not, and performance of 180 degree that way. Yeah, so like, in spherical quadrants and what the equator is, all that. And my thought about the pericardium ultimately got to the similarities of like how the bronchial tube actually with mesothelioma is that the lining of the lungs and the bronchial tubes is so congested in between the layers that it doesn't allow any coughing or mucus in between to escape, and it becomes an extremely serious cough. I mean, non-stop, for real. And so all those similarities of like what defined as a bag means, 3 layers of a bag, ultimately sounds like the heart itself, and like, the lungs. I mean, in the procedure of the ablation and other 2 other procedures, it's like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. So I mean, ultimately it gets to like the double heart on the paper made pen, and it's kind of like, hey, like what's really going on for real? But anyway, so anyway, yeah, I'm kind of like, I'm fixing to run out of power on my battery. I gotta plug it in and get it going in. And anyway, I was speaking a little bit longer than normal. Anyway, talk to you later, okay?